I'm Jill, that's Jade, and this is Plus Points,
a video series that looks at the books of the Bible by genre.
This episode is about the narrative, which is the most common type of literature in the Bible.
A good chunk of the New Testament is narrative in structure too.
But today's focus will be the Hebrew narratives of the Old Testament, or Tanakh. Settle down, children. It's story time. First point, narratives are stories, self-contained pieces of a whole with a beginning, a middle, and an end, and they're arranged into books.
As for how they were arranged into said books...
Well, my money's on Moses.
Orthodox Judaism believes that the books of the Torah, Genesis to Deuteronomy, were written entirely by Moses on Mount Sinai. Except for the parts that describe the death of Moses, he probably wasn't there to describe that himself. And further, that the words are divine and verbally revealed. That is, God speaks and Moses writes it down.
Conservative Judaism believes that the Torah is God-inspired and written by Moses, but isn't averse to the documentary hypothesis, which, well, hypothesizes that the Torah is based on one or more older sources, so that's divine but not verbally revealed. And this is a pretty popular view among Christian denominations too.
And Reformed Judaism and liberal Christianity believe that the Torah was written down by people, which, let's face it, probably included Moses to a lesser or greater extent, and was based on older texts and stories that had been passed down through generations. So, divinely inspired, but not directly revealed. Regardless of the fact they're in writing, narratives are meant to be heard and not read. This is why they make use of a number of different structural and linguistic techniques to help them be remembered.
Like repetition, ring composition, and repeating patterns.
Read the Book of Judges, for example, and every story is the same format, but with the details changed.
Sin, oppression, crying out to God, a judge is raised up to save them, there is peace in the land for X years, and then we're right back to sinning.
And because narrative's a story, they'll have characters and conflict.
First, they have protagonists, who are our heroes, ladies and gentlemen. They will have antagonists, who are, baddies. And they will also have agonists, who are important to the story but act in a neutral manner.
The people in the stories are characterised by their action and dialogue, not their appearance or lots of description. If physical details are included, then they're important to the story. Or so that a pun can be made later. The scenes and action are the focus, though, and for that we need the main ingredient of any good story.
Conflict. If you want plot, which is to say if you want anything to happen in your story, then you need conflict, which gives you your beginning, this is what our conflict is, your middle, this is what we tried to fix it, whether it worked or not, and your end, this is how it was resolved, yay.
So when you read a narrative like Joseph and his brothers, or David and Bathsheba, or Hannah and her son Samuel, it's good to bear a few things in mind.
Do not commit narrative abuse. 1. Narratives are not stories full of hidden meanings that the special snowflakes that God especially likes can dig out. Well, probably. While they may be used, say, in the New Testament to refer to something else, like Jesus referring to himself as a suffering servant, let's be clear, they had meaning before that, one that was relevant to their hearers at the time. So no allegorizing and no decontextualizing either. This is also pointed out in several places in the Talmud, which strongly discourages cross-comparison of specific words unless the passages in which they appear have a strong tradition of being linked.
They aren't Aesop's fables either. They give powerful demonstrations of the consequences of, say, adultery. Seeking David. But drawing a nice, shiny moral from them isn't really the point. Wait, really?
What are you doing with that?
Well, I was just going to go to the loo.
Do you normally bring weapons with you to the bathroom?
And in case royalty happens along.
3 narratives are for us, but they were not written to us, nor were they written about us.
It's not about me.
No. The story of Deborah or Joseph or Ehud, Jade, is not about you. Not even if your name is Joseph. Not even if your brothers chuck you down a well and then sell you into slavery, although I will admit that would be fairly uncanny. Narratives are stories about the people therein, they're not about you. With that said, our key point for this episode, biblical narratives are past events retold to give instruction in the present. And this instruction may include a moral lesson. Maybe, but specific commandments supersede them, so no murder, okay?
Okay, sorry. The stories of the Old Testament were selected and arranged for a specific purpose, the writer trying to tell us something about the God of the Israelites or the history thereof.
Of God or of the Israelites?
Both.
So God, even when the text isn't explicitly talking about him, is the main character of the meta-narrative. That's the overarching story. The Bible is about people, but it's mainly about God. The stories are about people, but individually and collectively, they're also about God.
For example, the story of Esau and Jacob on its own is one of two brothers fighting for dominance. There's favouritism and jealousy and trickery and whatnot.
It's the story of how a younger brother came to be the one through whom the line of succession was traced instead of the older.
And that in turn is a demonstration of how God can work in surprising ways.
One might also expect that the lineage of King David would be super squeaky clean and devoid of any potentially embarrassing relations. Or, any women. But right in there are Ruth and Rahab, one a foreigner and the other a most interesting lady who I would love to tell you all about.
But that's all we've got time for today.
Oh, okay. Well, tune in next episode for The Laws, where I might even be wearing polycotton.
You wicked harpy.
Speak for yourself, Stabby McMurderson.